So the big season, 87, big games that regular season. Anything that comes to mind for you guys?
There are so many big games. You talked about the conference is so big, but I guess I remember Park Center second game here because we'd beaten them by 31 points earlier in the season at their place, and coming here and maybe thinking we're going to be able to take them, but they improved obviously all season. Kevin had a last-second shot to win that game. His coaches brought up the Armstrong games. They're both very tough. At Armstrong, they would triangle and two on Kevin and Bada, and then Dan Nairwood was in foul trouble. I think Todd Doncavage, a junior, had to come in and play and do a good job. So those are some games that really stick out in my mind, but Kevin's going to have.
The Kennedy game, the second Kennedy game at Kennedy, end of the regular season, we beat them. Dan Nairwood hit a last-second shot.
And they beat you the previous year.
And they had beaten a junior year that first
A lot
game.
of the same players.
Yeah, and then we hammered them later in the season, junior year. But yeah, you're right, Jim. They beat us in that first game against Kennedy at Kennedy that year. But one other game that's kind of interesting was Washburn. We played Minneapolis Washburn, and so we played that was the middle of the season of 86, 87, and. I remember the varsity guys, we were out watching the JV game, sitting in the stands watching the JV game, and you guys lost that JV game, I think, and played terribly. And we were watching part of the game, and then at halftime of the JV game, all the varsity guys went in to get ready for the varsity ball game later on. And I think the Washburn JV team beat our, and Jack Evans was watching the game as well. He's in the gym, and he was getting all fired up because of how poorly the JV team was doing against a Washburn JV team that wasn't that good. And we were in the locker room kind of goofing around and laughing and stuff, and Jack came into the locker room at some point while we were kind of goofing around because we were like in the middle of this great season. We thought we're going to romp on these guys and, it's going to be a blowout. Well, he came in and kind of heard some of us. He's already fired up from watching the JV action, comes in and hears us kind of screwing around a little bit in the locker room and laughing, and he chewed us out for, 20 seconds or 30 seconds and let us know that you guys got to take this serious and whatever. And so we got laser focused and we jumped on, we were like upset that our coach was chewing us out. So when the varsity game did start, we like jumped on Washburn, and they might have had like 4 points at halftime. It was like 30-4.
Yeah.
And we just stomped on them. But a couple close games that we had with Armstrong and Park Center, and then that Washburn game, I think kind of maybe kick-started us a little bit the second half of the season. And I guess besides that one Kennedy game at the very end, we were kind of rolling.
So you guys get to regions, sections. How'd that progression go?
Minnetonka was the first game.
Yeah.
Yeah, we steamrolled Tonka. We were talking about that last night because there were some older college guys, former players that came in and practiced against us. And Tommy Bada was talking about how that was tough to get against them, but then going against Minnetonka just felt like playing a junior high team.
So was that here?
Yeah.
Yep. Was that a home game?
Yeah, so we kind of kicked their butts, and then Minnetonka in the quarters, and then we were at Armstrong for the semi.
That was Augsburg, right?
Augsburg. I'm sorry, Augsburg. Where we played St. Louis Park, and they were a good team that year.
Did they have Dave Peterson then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Peterson was a sophomore. He was a sophomore that year. And
Chris Wold?
No, he was gone.
Okay.
He was gone at that point. But some of the kids from our class from '87 from Park were good players, and we just. We were such a good team. We ended up beating them by over 20. And so we took care of them, and then we met Edina in the were you at that Edina game?
You know what? I was out of town, but I was at the Edina game. I'm trying to think. I think this was 87. I was at the Edina game here, and for some reason I recalled your dad and Jack wore tennis shoes and their practice gear. And it had something to do with you guys hadn't been working hard or practicing hard during
Really?
practice.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. I might have the years mixed up, but I remember that. They wore like their practice stuff, and they were upset with how you guys were working in practice. But anyways,
Do you remember that?
I can't remember my kids' names. So.
But anyhow, so you get them in the region final, and I remember they were a big team. They had some good athletes, and of course they had Craig Kluge as their point guard.
Or something that guard.
Kluge. Yeah, Craig Kluge. Well, he's an all-state kid. He was a good player, and he could really play. He transferred in from California the year before. And then they had Andy Bedell, 6'10".
Yep.
And then they had some other, I mean, they had a couple juniors that were like 6'5".
Pete Rather,
Yeah.
and Andy Gronick, I think.
Yeah, good athletes, and they actually played us pretty tough that first quarter, and then we just kind of methodically put them away and ended up beating them by I think 16 or 18 or something like that in that regional final game. So, yeah, and Kluge he was a good player, really good player, but we were tough, man, and it was the games that made me the most nervous were always the regional games, and then when you get to the tournament, that first game in the state tournament, the quarterfinal game, because if you're not on, you can have a great season, and we had a great season up to that point, undefeated, but if you slip up, you're done, and you don't even get to sniff what happens in the state tournament. So, and St. Louis Park, a good team, Edina, two good teams, and then that Woodbury game to start the state tournament. So, yeah, I mean, we were on our game. It was all business at that point.
So you get to the state tournament. You have Woodbury first round. I don't recall who they had.
And unbeaten, too.
You're unbeaten, yeah.
That's right.
Number one, I'm sure, in the state. Did you handle them pretty easily, or won by 20 on that one? Okay, and you get to the semifinals.
I played Duluth East.
Duluth East.
We scrimmaged.
Yeah, that's right.
Scrimmaged on Christmas time.
That's right. We had
They
gone
had
up.
good players.
Now, Jake, was Len Olson the coach that year? Was he still there, or was he in Owatonna at that time?
He was in Owatonna.
there.
Okay.
So, yeah, they were good. They were a very good team.
Yeah,
They had a tough game that semifinal.
yeah. Go ahead.
Who was it? Dave Zoller, and was there still a Hanson there?
Hanson kid, yeah.
So they were a really good team.
Yeah, and they had another big guy inside too. So,
Yeah, I was at
yeah, that was kind of a dogfight, that game, that semifinal game against Duluth East. But
Well, we also sat in the locker room for an extra 5 quarters.
That's
'cause the
right.
Blaine game was it 5 overtimes, Coach? Before, so it was like, all right, let's go. Nope, sit back down.
Who did they have?
it was Blaine and Moorhead went to
Blaine
5
and Moorhead.
overtimes.
Oh, wow.
This other semifinal right before our semifinal, and yeah, it was like. We're all 17, 18, we're itching to
Right,
get out there and
yeah.
take care of business, and we just kept waiting, and
Took a little wind out of the
Eddie
sails.
Novak Jr. was the coach for Blaine then.
well, the next game, but the Duluth East game was in Tommy Bata. We jumped on East pretty quickly. We were up 10, I think, quickly, and then Bata got into foul trouble. Really, our best outside shooter was in foul trouble and didn't play a whole lot that game. And once he kind of got into foul trouble, then the game just kind of tightened up and slowed down, and they were a good team. So
So you get to the final. You got Blaine. They'd gone to 5 overtimes. It might have tired them out a little bit. And you guys pretty much just dismantled them.
what are your memories of that game?
Oh, it was just from the beginning. They just didn't seem like they even wanted to be in the gym. Kev had a big dunk. They kind of tore everything open. I remember, the other one I remember is Mike Jensen.
That's right.
Came off the bench, and I think this might be one of Coach's his all-time favorite memories is Jens went in there, and I don't know how many rebounds he grabbed, but Jens is a big guy, and he would just go in a body. And there was one series he had like 4 offensive rebounds. It was just like Bengals bouncing off him left and right, but it was just the spirit of the whole season was we're not going to be stopped, and Jens just would not be stopped from grabbing all of these rebounds. But yeah, just to be able to finish the season that way, and you talk about going to the state tournament and being focused, and you don't want something to slip up. I think our team was focused. I think some teams like, oh, we're just happy to get here. Park Center, they pulled a giant upset over North in the Region 5 championship game, and Rosemont was there. And so from our conference, we knew how tough we'd had it all season. But I think we were we're focused. We weren't cocky or anything, but there's a focus to finish this off.
And you certainly did.
Yeah, it was. The funny thing is, we played Blaine earlier that season at Stillwater, a Christmas tournament, and we just clobbered them. I mean, I think we beat them by 20 in the final score. But my memory of playing Blaine in that Christmas tournament that year. We were up 30 at some point. We just kicked the crap out of them. And then and then they improved and stuff, and we didn't see them until March in the state tournament. But, and then we didn't beat them by 30 or 20, but it was close to 20, I think. But yeah, we just kind of handed it to them. But at that point, we got a job to finish. You know, we're 25-0 at that point, and it was just one more hurdle to climb. And yeah, it was so sweet. I mean, it gives you goosebumps, you know, to finish off something like that. And like I said, I played basketball, you know, as college after and professionally after, and that was a special season. That whole experience. And again, what made it so sweet was I was doing it with my buddies, you know, my best friends who we hung out with, whether we played basketball or not. And that's just that's what made it kind of that magical run that year.
Yeah, the 80s was really a unique year for basketball. It seemed like twos. White Bear Lake won it 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
You guys won it 2 years in a row. Late 80s, early 90s, Owatonna went 2 in a row. And it was just kind of, you know, there were those teams that had that depth, it seemed like.
Even Armstrong. Got to the finals
Twice.
2 years in a row, but they lost both times.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah. It just seemed like the sign of the times. So, Robbie, you're coaching over at Glencoe now, and we've seen so many changes in the game. And, you know, just tell us how things are going out there and the program and how the kids are doing.
Yeah, you know, it's really different being out in a smaller town out in Glencoe than it is in the metro. I've had a great experience. I've been out there for a long time. This will be the 7th season where the head coach. I have great kids. You know, the coaches talk about the relationships, and that's what you remember when you're coaching is the relationships with these teams. And just when the season ends, you're just not ready for that to end. But I've been blessed to be able to coach so many great kids in a couple different sports. But basketball's, you know, kind of the one that I've wanted to take. And yeah, you know, we played Jefferson 3 years. We never won them, but those were great evenings. We had a couple competitive games, and one year was. Don't know that we should have came to the gym, but you know, it's a learning experience, and it is. It's relationships you build with those kids that they're going to remember and that you remember overall. So I've had a great time. You know, each year is new. You get new kids coming through all the time, so it's always a new learning experience.
And just the changes with the seniors. You know, I mean, I look at how here, you know, you look at the 75, 76 year, Steve Lingenfelter hardly played much his junior year. I mean, that's how much depth they had. And you know, I think you might have been the first one to kind of break that ceiling as a sophomore and play up. And then there were a few here and there up until Cole in the 2000s. Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, now you really have to have those kids stick around because you have the pressures of, well, it's not the only reason, but they may leave.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a different era.
I think that was one of the things that was different at Jefferson. Back then, there weren't younger kids. I mean, like you said, Kevin was the first one who played. I think maybe John played a little bit when he was a sophomore. Maybe
not
John
many.
Played, not much though.
I don't think Chris McGowan when he was a sophomore.
Very few.
Ever played.
Like Big Liggy never hardly played a sophomore year at all.
Right. I think that's one of the great things about the program here. And this has changed, obviously. Now you have 8th graders that are, you know, advanced and they can play up and have success. But that's one of the things that was great about Jack and Jake were, you know, you reward seniors, you know, and typically seniors are more ready to play. They're a bit more physically developed. And, you know, those are the kids that really put the time in, especially and that's a big reason why, Jim, I think we were having so much success back in those days is because, you know, a lot of kids wouldn't play hardly any. I was maybe a little bit different. I played as a sophomore than obviously a lot as a junior, but, you know, when you're a kid who came through this program and you're witnessing success with the varsity team and you want to play, and you're a sophomore and you're on the sophomore team, and then you're a junior and you stay in the JV, you're just itching to get your crack at performing on the varsity level, and you reward those kids. And obviously, it's more than just wanting. You got to have talent too. That's a big part of it. But it kind of feeds the desire for these kids once you become a senior to, you know, have a great experience and have a good team. And Don't you think?
Yeah.
Like rewarding seniors and upperclassmen. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, you do. The kids got to kind of wait their turn. You wait your
Right.
turn, and you do it. Like you said, you want to show everybody this is what we've been able to do, and now we're going to show you, and we're going to do it.
Well, it's such a challenge now because it's immediate gratification. It's I want it now.
It's so different now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Bata hardly played as a junior. He hardly played.
Yeah, Tommy Bat.
Best players in the state.
Tommy Bata was a great example of what we're talking about here. Played when he was a sophomore, was on the sophomore team with you guys. And then as a junior, he was strictly a JV guy. Never played. Grew a couple inches that next summer, and he's about 6'5" and can shoot it. By the end of our senior year, he was one of the best players in the state.
Yeah.
He was.
Yep.
And, yeah, but nobody knew much about him because he hadn't played since he was a sophomore. He kind of came out of nowhere, but that guy could play.
it's very similar, I think, of Lakeville North a few years ago when they lost in the title game. And they had a little sophomore that come off the bench and just start drilling shots all over the place, and that was JP McCurra. And then, by the time he became a junior and senior, you saw what he became. But they had all that depth too. But it is a different time now. It's a different element. You got to protect your kids, but anyways, the seniors a little bit. Don't you guys feel like their backs against the wall a little bit? Hey, they finally realize their brain checks in and it's like, hey, this
Yep.
is it.
Yeah.
I got to do it, or
It's now or never, basically, and I think that can lead to, I don't say desperation, but a little bit. You're kind of like, this is my last crack. I'm not a sophomore right now. Once you get to the postseason and regions or sectionals, you lose, you're done. And that's it. I mean, how many games have you guys seen, or you guys know for sure, where your seniors are done, your season's over, the kids who really care, they start to cry. I mean, it's because they're so emotionally attached to the season and playing basketball and having success. Happens all the time. And so there, I mean, some seniors, I think, handle it that way. There's a bit of desperation if you really care.
Yep. Yeah, I've gone through that. My last 2 seasons have been all seniors. I lost 8 seniors season before. And last year, I had 9 seniors. They're all gone. So I lost 2 full starting 5s of seniors in 2 years. And we had 2 successful seasons. And this year will bring a whole different dynamic. But it is. Those seniors stick around and they want to show that, maybe I should have played last year. And that's kind of that chip on your shoulder. And they're ready to step up. So it's a neat experience, though, to be able to have those kind of teams where it is senior-led and they have to kind of wait their turn.
Mm-hmm.